There you go, a quick look at the African roundup when it comes down to the biggest stories. Thank you very much, Asha Komugisha. Quickly updating us on really what is happening everywhere else outside Uganda. Now, let me let you in on a very big secret today. We are having those phone calls, so feel free to please get this number noted down somewhere so that midway the discussion, when we call for those phone calls, you can just call us and give us your side of the story. We are discussing the long journey Ugandan football has gone through since the 1970s. So it's fine when you look left or right and your parent seems to be following the debate more than you are, you probably should hold in there. We shall get closer and closer to the recent years and you probably can join in as well. We shall be using 0785 889 596. I'll say it thrice. 0785 889 596. One more time. 0785 889 596. It is the one we shall be using throughout the show. Just to give you a quick feel. All right, quickly start off this very discussion. Robert Madoi is not on set this week, but he caught up with another special journalist, Mr. Vianney Nsimbe, to give him his own feel on what happened in the 70s, where the slump could have come from, and where we are in Ugandan football. Here he is.
Now, there have been so many watershed moments when it comes to what occasioned the slump in Ugandan club football. None, however, compares to that dark day in 2003 when AC Villa beat Akol 22-0 in a league game. One of the people who were in the stands at Nambole that day was John Vianney Nsimbe, an acclaimed Ugandan sports journalist. He was in the stadium as a fan. John, can you recount, the events that led up to this first?
Yeah, of course, during that time, there was this tight competition between Express and Villa, but largely because Villa had won so many league titles on the bounce at that time. Villa had won from 1998 up to 2002 in succession. And so the thing was that there was a sense of desperation on the side of Express. Even on the side of the Federation, it seemed like the Federation wanted to see Express win at least a league title from those many that Villa had won in those years. So what Villa did, when a call came, especially after the drama that Express had been involved in of stopping a call players from coming up to the game for the game to Nambole, Villa ensured that they got at least 8 players of a call, 7 or 8 that came. In fact, during that game, when I watched it, I realized that there were trainees that had been at Villa Park that had been fielded in their call team. And I don't know how they got the jerseys, but there were trainees that I had seen at Villa Park for so many months that were trying their chances out to see that they could join Villa. And they were playing for a call. And so when I saw that moment, it was really saddening. Of course, as a fan at the time, you're young, I was at the university, you sort of like get excited, but then afterwards when you reflect, you realize that that's not a good thing for Ugandan football. And I felt that once that happened, it was a reason why so many fans realized that this game was not clean in the country, and they decided to walk away. And I feel that if I had not turned into a journalist a few years later, probably I would also have walked away, because it was one of those most embarrassing moments which I felt that if we had taken good grasp of, both Express and Villa should have been relegated probably to the first or second division. I think that would have been the most fair decision, which would have actually been a turning point for Ugandan football today and solved that kind of vice that has eaten up Ugandan, even today, where you still see their incidents of match fixing.
Okay. There you heard it from John Vianney Nsimbe. Even today, still incidents of match fixing. How will Ugandan football recover from all of this? It remains to be seen.
Man, I tell you what, I so love my country. I love the politics in this country, and sometimes I just love how fun it turns out. Does anyone remember AC Villa beating a call 22-1 in 90 minutes, ladies and gentlemen? Dakaba, I'm sorry, this is how I introduced you to the show. It's quite pathetic that you have moments like those. And for me, the big question is how contributing are they to what could have been a slump?
I actually wanted to start with that moment by saying that I was in high school in St. Anthony's College, Chitovu. And there weren't many of us, I think, at the time who were that interested in what was happening in football, in league football, in 2003. And I remember I was following the game on radio with a friend of mine. I actually forget the name. I could only pick out the face if I met him today, because I've not seen him, I think, since we left university. which is what we are aging now.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
joining
about
Mark.
30,
It's
40
11
years
years
now.
ago. 11 years ago. So I remember listening and following, and then I think the comment was on Top Radio, because I used to be akin to my scanner, the tiny radio, which of course was prohibited, and I hope...
That's Sony, so you had a scanner.
Yeah, the scanner, and I can imagine Brother Masiko is watching the show and thinking that he didn't implement discipline as he was supposed to. And with every goal that went in, I think I started feeling something fishy at 14-0, and that was halftime. But initially, I didn't feel anything, and actually, that day I had made plans to go to Masaka town to watch a game between Masaka Local Council and Express. But I failed to get a pass to get into the town that day because I couldn't get the who was the director of studies, I think it was Mr. Twino at the time. But then I was told by those who had passes to go and watch the game that actually a linesman celebrated an Express goal that was 10 miles offside. On the same day as Villa was scoring 22, because the league at the time was going down to goal difference. So Villa thought that if Express win a game, what do? We score as many as possible and win the game on goal. We win the league on goal difference. And I think that is what broke the camel's back. If Ugandan football needed a sinking point, I could pick so many things, and we could go on with a lengthy debate about how the 12th man disappeared. Of course, I understand there's a lot more competition today. If you want to gather people, probably in the 90s, Mark, you can attest to this. Music shows didn't have as big crowds. Actually, when I started going to games in the 90s, I remember people who had organized concerts, let's say Tamukati and all these Lingala things, they came to football games to try and entice fans to go and watch the Pekali, because that's where the fans are. Now today, if you want people to go to the stadium, probably the best place to find them is Cricket Oval for a music concert, and then you entice them to come and watch a football game. So that's how much it's changed. And you could say 2003 was the lowest point of Ugandan football.
I like how Dakawa sets our pace today, because he's picked out one specific incident. The discussion tonight is really what happened, because, and I want to come to Mark Sally now, and I will reintroduce this really, Mark. The 70s, the 80s, the 90s. I didn't watch most of that football, but I read the history of Ugandan football. It was brilliant. We had crazy competition. We have a story we've told on this show before, how players were idols, how players were superstars. He walks through Kampala Road, there are flags all over the place, and everyone wants to meet Omondi and sign an autograph for Majid Musisi and everything. Then there comes a time when the steam in Ugandan football goes away, when the fans walk away. And then we're asking ourselves, has our talent disappeared? Don't we have money to fund these players anymore? We have more money, but don't we have facilities now? Is it politics at club level, poor management? Is it politics at the federation level? But I want you to first paint for me a picture of football in the 70s and 80s. Just how big was it?
Okay, before I go there, I'll just tell you, for starters, because one or two viewers out there might misunderstand our conversation. And not realize actually that there's a bit of a revival. There's a resurrection. And club football is getting back on track. The national team is as well supported as it ever was. It is huge, and there's a lot of good things happening in Ugandan football right now, because the crowds are coming back gradually. The sponsorship has come into the game, and there's quite a bit of competition spread around. So it's not the doom and gloom of 2003 right now, because there's a resurrection and in the good direction. But I'll go back to where you're asking. I didn't watch the game in the 70s. That's when I was born. But I watched in the 80s. My very first league game was in 1983. It was Express versus Night Hill, if I remember. After that, I didn't watch that many, because I was a primary school going kid in boarding school. And then there came the war and everything. So my first, I'll say full season was 1986. 85, I caught one or two games, and then war broke out and things like that. And then from 86 onwards, I'm good. I'm good. I watched not everything, but a lot of it. I followed a lot of it. So
how big a damage did that war leave behind, though, for football?
There was quite the damage. People couldn't come to the stadium at some point because of the. I mean, there was even curfews. There were curfews at the time. So, but I'm saying, it was the game was very good back then. There were. It is all we knew. There was very little on television. There was some football made in Germany. There was Patrick Kawoya, the late Patrick Kawoya, who was the patron of SC Villa, through his Olympic Spare Motors, started bringing English football. It used to be called Big League Football, onto television.
Yes.
And imagine at my age, I didn't even realize until much later that the games we were watching were not live in English, the English Premiership. Because you actually thought you were catching a live game, but it happened the weekend before. Because I'll tell you when when Michael Thomas scored to give Arsenal the title over Liverpool, 89, you remember? 89, 90, coming into that, I watched that thinking I was watching it live. And you can imagine how crazy you went.
Yeah, the theatre had gone 2 days
that was the time
back,
when
the trophy parade was over.
From that. But I was just painting the picture for you. There wasn't that much competition. And then and even all around the world, even if we were not that connected, all around the world, there was not as much access to league football, global league football on television as there is now. Which is why, for example, major tournaments, the European Championship, the AFCON, and the World Cup were so huge. Because a person had to wait 4 years to actually watch Diego Maradona if you didn't have Syria football.
And Mark, you could add that was the time you could watch live football.
Yes,
not the previous.
So exactly, So the Ugandan football didn't have that much competition, and our idols were here, our superstars were here, and these are the clubs we loved, we grew into. Many people were born into that. The reason I supported the club I did was because of some of the guys I grew up around in Najana Nkumbi. Because there was a time when I was actually undecided on which one of the three giant teams to support, until one of you or two people I was living with in the same confines in Najana Nkumbi made up my mind for me. But then there were guys who actually, it was their dads at home and everything.
Yes.
So you were born into these clubs, you grew into them, and you supported them. And they were the only thing you did. Now, I'll tell you, for example, personally, my idolization of Godfrey Katerega was so intense. It was as a kid. I idolized this man so much because he was one of those very arrogant off the pitch, very clean. This is a guy who used to put on all white sneakers, socks, and everything and all, and then walk an entire village without virtually not stepping on the ground. Because he didn't want a drop of dust on his socks and everything. that was how clean and arrogant he was. And then fans, but he was so idolized that he would be walking down and people would be throwing money at him. And he didn't have the time to bend down and pick it up. But yet it was the norm. It was the culture.
So
when Express or KCCA or Villa players won a football game, the next day they would walk around the village or go to the Chirasha or Nachivo if there was another game for another club. And akabonekaita. And everybody would collect money. That's how it was. That was the culture. But Godfrey Katerega was too arrogant to bend down and pick up a coin.
Mark, who would pick that
Who
money?
would pick the money? I'm very interested.
Other people,
But did they pick it to give it to him?
So you can imagine the irony of how he died a pauper. But I'll come to that. But so the game, there was that idolization. There was, this is what we knew. These are the stars we had. And there was not much competition. From other modes of entertainment, which are here today. You've got television, I just talked about it. I mean, flip on the DSTV channels, and it's amazing. You've got, how many musicians right now?
Music shows, crusades.
Guys, I can't tell, you can't tell I'm not sure I can tell the difference between, say, Fik Farmaker and the next guy. There's so many stars at that young age.
Khalifa Ghana.
Guys who are talented and all. There are that many. No, I can tell the difference between them.
But the spelling is different, guys.
There was, like, say, 1 or 2 discotheques around town that you knew. You either went to Clouds or Tropicana 110. Now every single bar is a club. And there's 5 or 6 bars along any street you take in Kampala, and then in the environs there are perhaps 20. If you walked, say, from let's say from Chibuya roundabout going up the hill to Machindi, the Machindi hill up to Olukuli, I think every other place is a bar.
Mark, I'm going to come back that shortly. Mark.
The amount of entertainment
is increased
now.
But I'll come that shortly, Mark.
What was there?
Let me first get a comment from Andrew Mangusha on the very topic as well. I like how Mark has set the pace. And Dakaba seems to support him, that there's more entertainment out there. I actually don't support what they're saying, because for me, I believe if you're a football fan,
it's it's not. We're not running the golden road.
I'm going to go back to
I understand that.
how we messed up that.
And we have so much reaction on social media, by the way, that is coming through. But Mwangusha is an interesting one. I've seen 2 comments on social media, and Joel will take us through that shortly. Most of these guys are talking about, my father used to take me to the stadium. That's how I started supporting Express. And now the same folks are saying, I watched Express when I was a kid throughout. And now I'm wondering, then why did you stop? That's what I want to start from now, because he's given us the background of what it was like those days. I don't know how your age specifically, I'm not very sure about your age, Mr. Mwangusha. But
my research will take me to 1993.
1993?
Yes.
Meaning you're 1993.
That's where now the second spark that led to a call actually started because of the rivalry between Villa and Express.
Playing in the league at the time.
Yes, in the league. Of course, Express.
I was playing in the league at the time.
You were? Oh, then you'll tell us more.
I was a university student playing in the league.
Yeah,
For diary.
Yeah, playing
so,
for
radio. I was live on radio.
I'm
Mike
surprised I was even
Arerenga and
born.
who else?
I'm surprised I was even born.
What happened?
But I think the spark that got lost in there is, at the time, if Villa wanted a special player, specific player, Express would go for the same player. So the rivalry actually started from the administrators, not just the fans. So the administrators' actions heightened, you know, the pressure and just you remember the Mobiru's crossing and all. So the rivalry started straight from administration, and it came through to the fans. So by the time it was match day, it was intense. Now, if you go back to 93, 94, Express and Villa, you know, exchanging titles here and there, and then it became to grabbing coaches, you grab a coach, you grab a player, until that point when Villa went on a 7-winning streak, and Express could not take any more of it. And then you had a FUFA led by Dennis Obua, who, just like Express fans, could not take any more of it. And that's how, if you listen to Vianney well, FUFA was involved in trying to give money to players of a call in Lira, not to travel to Kampala. And then when they finally traveled, actually, I don't remember the suburb, but quite a number of them left. Only 9 were left. And then 9 are the ones that made it to Nambole. So everything now was being hatched both from the administrators in the club and the FUFA. Yes. And then what hurt most the fans is a probe was put in place by NCS, and they handed over the reports to the Ministry of Education. And in the report, of course, they wanted to annul the league, also rendered FUFA incompetent.
And then relegate both Express and Villa. That was one of the recommendations.
And also banned quite a number of officials. Yeah. Now, FUFA, like you know FUFA.
I don't know. Why are you accusing
with a father figure somewhere.
Yeah. Federation then.
Yes, a federation.
Please say then, because FUFA
it remains FUFA. Because when you're talking Ugandan football, it's Ugandan football. At the time, of course, scoffed at these findings, and Oriem was the minister, I think, at the time. He shelved it with NCS, and they kept their reports.
Actually, so, Andrew, I could add to this, is that the only place I've seen this report run in public domain is a story, is a series that I saw Hassan Badru Ziwa did for Daily Monitor. I've seen it in the Monitor Library, going back to see newspapers from 2003 and 4. And that's the only place this report has been made public. Nowhere else.
And as you go on, you realize that this is a norm in this country. Reports quick to start the probes. Yeah. No one sees the reports to date.
By the way,
an interesting one.
That game, what what you have to remember, like Vianney has talked about it, and so have this too. But it was a culmination of things that had been happening the entire season. Now, personally, I've been watching the season. I've been watching the entire season. Now, as a sports editor at the Monitor, and also somebody who covered games. And
so you're the one who let the Hassan Badru Ziwa report. Series of the report be published by Monitor at the time.
I was his editor. if you like, yeah.
Tell us more
but I'll tell you that what I'd been following events, and it got to a point where Godfrey Chirumira and Express were going to win the league at any cost, and Villa were having none of it. And Villa, of course, are the guys who had been dominating, and the guys who the rest of the football fraternity saw as the ones who knew how to play dirty the most, and who had the biggest muscle. And that had been something, a myth that had been built over a long period because of the depth of the pockets of Patrick Awoya and the rest of the Villa patrons through the 80s, up to the 90s.
And into the 90s, of course, when they had a bit of soldiers from the army.
When Villa dominated, all that, So, so then it was like they used their financial muscle to win. Everybody else felt like the poor cousins who were being oppressed. So anyway, Godfrey Chumela had come into Express by 2003 when you're saying. It was a few seasons in as club president. And he had the pockets to match the guys at Villa. It was not Kawaya anymore. It was different people now. And he was, I mean, it started by him taking the Momo attack away from Villa Park.
That was huge.
That was, I mean,
Mubiru and Mukasa.
for them to cross over from Villa to Express is a big deal. I mean, that was a big deal. And then the guys put on
And
red
returned
outside
Kisela from
goals, yeah.
KCC.
So it got to a point where Express and Villa were monitoring each other's games and results. Express won a few games, and I'll say that unashamedly, by scoring a 97th minute penalty of a game which should have ended in the 92nd or 93rd, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
There's
I know what you mean.
I think one of the games they played up to the 100th minute or a little beyond. Yeah, but it was growing dark, and I mean, the referee's whistle was like until Express win. That was,
I'm actually trying to
final
remember
whistle was
this
supposed to
in the
go on that video. Now Villa.
It was growing dark.
I had to have a look at that when Hassan Mubiru scored that penalty winner, and I think the person who had won the penalty had dived several meters before the line.
The box,
yeah, before the box. Yes, but we exaggerated in football by saying Tiagudeku center line. It was that kind of thing, yeah. And the ref did this. But and Villa, what Villa were doing is they would go say up country. Express is playing at Wankuku. Villa have gone up country.
Kinyara, actually.
They delay the kickoff so that they can monitor, they can match Express's not just result, but Express's goals. So you find the same people sabotaging a referee's journey, so he could arrive late at the other stadium and kick off the game later, even later. So that Express,
I'm going to hit on the
Express
referees
had
because
half-time leading
because
0 and Villa just kicking
Let me
off.
do this. Dakaba, just 1 second. Mark, let me do this. Let me do this. Let me
And
just
it happened the entire
Mark,
season.
let me just get in some extra views from folks online, and then we can come back to the discussion. Because here is my quick deduction. We've talked about match fixing, the Villa call game, and probably other fixtures. Because this is match fixing as well. The referee arriving late really has everything
And
to
the
do.
officials also.
We've talked about the role,
starting at halftime
Yes.
of another day.
the role of the federation. Maybe could have been part of the struggles in Ugandan football.
yeah.
I
And
want
then
us,
the choices that people now have before football.
We've
There are
talked
so
about the
many choices.
entertainment we have now, options. We shall talk about the chaos in Stadia because I think we had part of that.
Oh, yeah.
I know football fans
yeah.
who said, I will not watch a local game again because of the chaos, for example.
Yes, and these things that were happening with the way matches were being managed by referees and all was part of why the hooliganism.
Yes, we shall discuss
but
that.
the role has been there.
We shall talk about money in Ugandan football. We shall talk about whether the talent went down or even government even supported. But also, I want us to talk about club management, how these clubs were managed at the time to ensure smooth transition. Now, we have a phone line today that you can call us on, actually. We shall be opening up our lines for you to take us through the journey of Ugandan football. At what point do you think Ugandan football struggled so much and why? Was it politics? Was it finance? Was it the quality of players? Was it the federation? Was it the club management? Or was it you who actually ran off from the stadium? The number is 0758 889 596. But let me quickly cross over Joel Kamadi because there's so much reaction, I'm told. Twitter is burning down, I'm told. Joel.
Twitter is burning down. You have to love Ugandan football, I tell you. I wouldn't manage to read all of them in one go, so I'll divide them probably into 3 or 2, and I'll go with the first batch now. Abdul Hakim Mugisha says, I last watched KCCA FC play against Onduparaka, but the only reason I think might be the distance between the place of living and where stadiums are located. E.g., me, I came from Kalangala to Lugogo to watch KCCA. If it wasn't the love for KCCA, I couldn't have managed to watch it. Ham Parker says, thanks for the show live in Abu Dhabi. I stay in Luweza when in Uganda, so whenever I'm home, I never miss a Vipers SC game anywhere. Ogwok Morris Highsketh says, I have never gone, unfortunately, because of the long distance, as me who supports Onduparaka and stay in Kampala can't travel to Arua because of the expenses. Murunji K. Ronald says, I tried last year, but the stone throwing, which almost took out my eye, promised me never to go back. All right, one Isaac says, well, I think Ugandan press isn't doing a lot on the local leagues because they don't promote our local teams and the teams don't invest a lot in marketing. That's why we have been influenced by the foreign leagues. Louis Phillips says, it's been long. The last club event I attended was Express FC's reunion event at Wankulukuku. The biggest reason is because the fixtures are always on a working day, but at least I'm always there for Uganda Cranes. Ham Parker says, well, there's a very interesting research topic for academicians. He says, 1, the direction of government on sports. 2, economic transformation of the country in the last 25 years. 3, cartels in sports administration. 4, 1999 to 2005 period of match fixing, which went unresolved and unpunished. Hampaka again says 5, alternative and better organized entertainment substitutes. 6, unqualified sports administrators. And 7, destruction of sports facilities, especially in urban areas. Now, Statman Polo says, I think too much politics in Ugandan football and less talent stopped fans coming from the stadiums. Thanks for the show. Norbert Uketh Wengu says, one thing in my opinion, chaos. Nobody wants to be caught up in the melee of tear gas and stones and missiles. That's why I only watch games at StarTime Stadium and at Nambole. Hampaka again says, there are various reasons. I will only highlight 2 primary factors. Predetermined outcome of the game. Most of the teams were city teams with the decongestion and movements of the population. These teams lost out. That is like Naguru quarters. They went down, go down where KCCA and Zambia Railway was, and Villa. Position, I'll just do maybe 4 more because my producers tell me I'm running out of time. Violence and hooliganism have kept us away. Try to check an article on how David Dean changed the Premier League and our clubs treat us poorly. Facilities need to improve for the fans. We need better stadiums and more marketing needs to be done. Wilbrod Makumbi says, as a kid, we went as a family to watch Express versus Villa at Masaka grounds. It ended in violence, police firing into the air. Never, ever braved a game again. Katamba Moses says, your dads used to take you to watch local matches, but now parents are busy taking their kids to these local matches where fights and obscenity could occur. Kaiwa Jimmy, bribery killed competition. Who can forget the infamous 22-0? Hurts even more knowing that my Jogo were the leading perpetrators. I have 3 more. Atukwasize Chris Ogon. The current problem at SC Villa, notwithstanding, will command the highest average match attendance, and our fans are arguably the most passionate. Viva Jogo, we shall rise again. 1 more. Chekuri Michael says, there's no more like a time that plays an interesting football that can persuade someone to go and watch. This is not because they don't have talented players, but because of favoritism based on relatives, and also politics has been engaged in Ugandan football. I feel like I've run out of breath, Andrew.
Hi. There you go. There's so much debate. Get calling. Give us your thoughts on the big headline of the night, the big debate. What happened to Ugandan football? There was a time when we felt we were so headed down, we easily could find oil. I'm telling you, Mark. But the number tonight
But
is...
we're back.
Yeah, we're back. No, we're doing well now.
Yeah.
The number is 0785-889-596. Good evening. Hello?
Yes, hello.
Yes, good evening. What's your name?
Thank you very much. I'm Caesar calling from Moyo.
Tell me, which football club do you support? How old are you?
Yes, I'm calling from Moyo. I just want to give my contribution to the show.
Okay?
Yeah, first of all, I want to thank you very much and the team, especially Mark and the rest. We also follow you from the countryside in Moyo.
Fantastic.
Yes, one of the reasons why I think Ugandan football has not been doing well as it used to be, I think one of them is the issue of favoritism and nepotism.
Okay, there you go. That is his point. And we have more phone calls. I think we should try and take as many, Mark. Then we can come back to the debate here.
Absolutely.
Good evening, my friend. What's your name?
Hello.
Hey, what's your name?
Hey, this is Derek Clark.
Tell me, where are you calling us from and what is your reaction?
I'm calling from Nansana.
From Nansana.
Yes, greetings to Ismail Dakaba.
Thank you very much.
I don't have a certain better moment in Ugandan football. I think until that time when the league was divided into 2 groups, I think at the time when Super Sports, I think DSTV was supposed to be the league sponsor, and the games were supposed to be shown live on Super Sports channels. Until stuff came in and the league was divided, I was another group and don't remember stuff, but I think that was the sudden moment when we had 2 different leagues under the same football federation.
Okay, thank you very much.
Disappointing. Thank you.
I don't know. I don't agree with him. I don't think that was the starting moment. If anything,
No, it was
Ugandan football was already revived around that same time.
Maybe
but
that's
at least
the
the
last
thing he
one.
points out
is
what football administration, how they
Can do,
contributed,
can harm.
how they contributed, because that was the epitome of our disorganization, our intrigue,
And greed.
our greed and everything. Yeah.
Let me
The
take two more
splitting
calls.
of the league into two.
Yeah,
and
let
all.
me
Yeah.
take two more calls, then we can come back to the debate. I'm telling you
Hello.
tonight, we're burning down. Good evening.
Hello.
Yes, what's your name, my friend?
Yes, hello.
I can hear you. What's your name?
Eh?
Oh, wow. I
Hello?
think we can take someone else.
Yes, hello?
I think let's take someone else. Good evening. Hello.
Yes, hello.
What's your name, my friend?
Daniel Mwanguzi.
Daniel, where are you calling us from?
I'm calling from Boyogerere.
Tell me, did you watch football? Did you watch football in the 90s, in the 80s?
Yes, I'll just make an analysis about the game in general. And being a player that has been there and a young player that has seen everything, I don't think politics is a problem for this game, because politics is all over the place. And the problem we are facing now is organized crime in the game. Government is into the game to take it away from the sports people. It's taking it away from the people, and from a big source, I come to learn that football is the silent arm of government. So people come in to play politics in the game, not develop the game. Every small thing that comes into the game is taken away by a small group of people.
Okay.
As we speak, you don't have a federation. You have a company running the game, and a company can never serve the people the way it should. So not until we tackle the problem of organized crime in football, that's when we shall proceed.
Okay. Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much. We really appreciate Mark, I know you're burning. Say something, but I want to start off with our guest here,
With our
Dakaba.
guest, yeah.
Someone online raised the question about the press. And I kind of support him, to be honest. The press, I don't think, has played the biggest part in developing local football. Sometimes I open a newspaper from a weekend or a newspaper during the week, and the big center spread is the Premier League. And if Ronaldo breaks a record, it's also on the back page. How much are you guys, I'm going to take myself out of this, how much are you guys giving attention to local sport?
Maybe you're pointing at Andrew, but I've got to say that the press is normally the soft target, and that is in everything. If Mark Sally here didn't have a road done well and the media ran it, the problem with why the Nile Bridge is peeling off is the press. I work at National Council of
Yeah,
Sports.
it would be because you're not asking to be for the right information. You're running away with. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead. Pardon me.
The best part about I think journalism and Max and I
You're
want to
treating the
assume
people like a ball in the
I want to assume that you're a very good journalist. That one of the biggest tools of journalism is observation. What you see is the biggest story. It's bigger than what you hear. Now, I think with the media, it's a soft target in many things. But you've got to understand, Andrew, that the media goes where numbers are. And in an era where, like we discussed with the choices and entertainment, the choices of entertainment, the media is a business. Something that brings in the numbers where they'll go. If you go back, when is the first time the World Cup was done regularly on Ugandan radio? I think 2002. By Stuart Mutevich Wanuka and his colleagues at Super FM, which is 17 years ago. And I think that is something that made a pathway for all radio to broadcast European football. It was the World Cup first. But you know, for some of us who are probably slightly older, football was on Radio Uganda, and it was broadcast in the 90s. I actually remember that I didn't get a chance to watch Idi Batambuze at his peak. But when I went out to the pitch and ran around, I sang myself as a Batambuze with all my wrong footballing skills. I should have been shot.
This is my young brother.
Yeah.
Because the man he's talking about was a teammate of mine.
Yeah. I should
Who he
have
only
been
had on radio.
Yeah,
But
I loved
the
the
same
way.
way I had certain players.
Yeah, and I
80s.
remember at the time, Radio Uganda was not even doing league football. They were doing the Sekafa championship, where it was the biggest thing. And I enjoyed hearing them, Batambuze, and
Sure.
it was very, very exciting. So I think that the media can take a bit of the blame, but then you've got to understand the media will go where the numbers are.
Yeah.
Many of you, when you open your Saturday newspaper that you're talking about, and there is Barcelona, Real Madrid, promise you, if Daily Monitor ran Vipers KCC as their lead story for that Score magazine, the MD would come down and talk to McNamara. This was a mistake. So even if McNamara loved it as much, who is a sports editor today,
Yeah.
The numbers-
he may not have this
the
skill.
numbers
to-
We shall
the
throw that
numbers will
online.
tell.
The jury's out there. They will tell us. I just don't believe in it. And
I think
before
I,
I come
need
to
to, I
Mark,
think I need to defend the press.
exactly, I'm coming to that. But I'll come to Mark to talk about club management.
Yeah.
And how clubs were managed then.
That's when
but
I-
before
yeah.
you come in, I want to come to Mangusha. Don't defend the press, Mangusha. You're part of them. I don't think you can defend the
Can't he
press.
defend
Ola.
himself?
No.
But yeah, but
This
you're,
is
you're
press
right.
box, my
I
man.
want to talk about
How
clubs.
can you
Yes,
forget
yes,
so fast?
yeah.
But the thought, Mangusha, the thought that the English Premier League, the Spanish La Liga, the Bundesliga, the Italian Serie A, the French League One, then were starting to be broadcast to Ugandans.
And television was becoming a
And
new...
television was becoming big. So now you have an 11-year-old who can tell you the entire Newcastle United starting 11. You have a 10-year-old who knows which players played at Manchester United last season. But the same 10-year-old cannot mention 4 clubs in the Uganda Premier League. Is that where the problem was, or is it just bad parenting? Because that's bad parenting. Why your kids?
There's
know about what's
there's
happening
only
in
2
Europe?
parents on the show, so
Yeah.
you cannot run a
Well, there's
role.
one who's almost becoming a
I-
parent.
The man, that's quite something. Anyway, I think
Stick to sport, my
it comes back. Perhaps that parent, you need to go down and look at why that parent no longer goes to the pitch. Perhaps he was a victim of some stone a few years later, and he doesn't want the kid to face the same. So if the same parent can afford DSTV and the kid enjoys all football without any fear or worry of stone pelting, then that parent will have the kid at home. Now, we also have to look at the product that we have, because you're not going to yes, you can be patriotic, you can push for your brand and all, but there are some things you cannot completely fight, because the same person telling you that it's too much English football and all, if you went to their home, I bet you'll find the same stuff on their TVs, and they have the remotes, so they'll still watch the same.
Yes.
So at the end of the day, like Isma said, it's business. But also, the press needs to get the credit, because if you look back, I work at the Daily Monitor, and I'll tell you for a fact, local sports takes more prominence than foreign sport in the Monitor. So when you say that, and I know for a fact that actually we cover more football, local football, than any other thing at the Daily Monitor. So there are some people who crammed that actually the press do not cover local sport. So they'll go running and singing the same song. They never read the papers.
attacking the
They
host
never...
Right.
But anyway, Dre, at the end of it all, people now need to start buying the papers,
Yeah.
because the papers, to promote the game, they need to make the sales as well. And for the teams now, the club management, the organizers and all should also stop depending fully on publicity from the media, and they should also work around building their own brand and also doing their own, publicity. Because if there's a game at Express, I can as well I can interview the coaches, the players, and all. Bring all the anecdotes that you need for a fun-filled game. But I won't be on radio reminding your fans to come for the game. Yeah.
Okay.
It's an interesting one. I think let's move on from that, because later on I want to go back online and get some more reaction on what you're telling us about that big slump in Ugandan football and maybe what happened. And I want to come now to club management.
Yes.
The political side of the game. Now, for the last few years, you hear about problems almost at every club in this land, where the players can't leave. I talk about the separation of 2 different leagues. Club management was very, very much at the center of this. We are of payment of players. We are of clubs that are not, looking forward so much to construct their own stadia. It all starts with the club management.
Yeah,
My question is, those days, Mark, how were these clubs led? What was the difference? Were there as many problems as we are now? Maybe they just weren't broadcast, or did we just have better club managers?
No, okay, well, we did to a certain extent, but also it is then that they were supposed to establish something with the longevity that would have outlived them, the guys who managed the game at club level and at federation level in the 70s and 80s. And unfortunately, they didn't. Even if we look back on the good old days as the golden era, and we quite enjoyed ourselves and there was a lot of success, it was not built to last. this is, and I'll tell you a few things. One, the 3 biggest clubs in the country were not clubs that were born out of, say, because the biggest clubs all around the world have communities behind them. They are either the face of a city, or of an entire district, or of a small village, or of a region, that kind of thing. Now, we did, unfortunately, for KCCA, Express, and Villa, we didn't have that.
You can say Villa tried it when they moved to Masaka.
Yes, yeah. So the origin was not that. So they didn't have, they could not rely on support by inheritance, support over the generations that is passed on, that kind of support. They needed to be able to build something that lasted, and they couldn't. So what happens is that when their fan bases have grown old, and they don't have quite the young generations coming through, because they did not establish themselves as your neighborhood club or your city club and all. They were all born in the city, but without those kinds of roots. Now, if I'd say, for example, Express, because their home is in Wankulukuku, that whole area needed to be able to associate with Express. And there are certain things you do as a football club to be able to ensure that it's a community club. So, and I saw somebody actually comment about it on WhatsApp today, saying that do you guys, for example, have a van that goes through the areas of Chitebya and Wankuluku and Mutundwe, announcing Express match days? But it was symbolic. It is symbolic of a bigger thing of what you're supposed to do.
Do you go there and help schools? Do you go there and clean roads?
Exactly, So how do you establish yourself as a community team? I see, when I look at Vipers, I'm sure that when I go to St. Mary's and see all these red shirts, I have a feeling most of these guys live around Bunamwaya and Chitende. And then the others went to that school. Because some of the guys who I see there in the stands and all, who are much younger generation than me, don't know about the good Express and Villa, and who support Vipers actually went through that school, and then those kinds of associations. So you're supposed to create those kinds of associations, because you don't have a city to your own, to yourself, or you're sharing it amongst so many. So the people who supported KCCA when I was a kid growing up were either civil servants or their relatives,
or people
and
from
also
Naguru and
people
Nakawa.
who grew up in Naguru and Nakawa, and all that area, and perhaps up to Chambogo and all. Now, where is the continuity? There wasn't the continuity. We did not then introduce the next generation of fans into that. The clubs did not dig into that. The clubs, while they were being run very well in that time, were not very visionary. Because what I tell you is that land went for much cheaper, and it was more accessible.
Cement was definitely cheaper.
And so Patrick Kawoya and Mugambe Ochiwanuka at Express, and also Bidandi Sali, could actually have established home grounds for these clubs then, proper stadiums of theirs. But we all actually depended on Nachivo. At the time, Nambole was not even
I mean, look at those pictures on the screen. Look at the number of fans behind those players.
And they didn't look forward to a time when that would not be available anymore, because all our derbies were in Nachivo then. Until then, Villa went to Masaka, and then we had some derbies there. And then Express went to Wakuroko, and we had some derbies there. But yes, they were there. Not in facilities that they owned, at a time when it was actually cheaper than now to own those facilities and create that kind of club culture. And the kind of thing Lawrence Murindo has done with St. Mary's Chitende could have been for a lot more money now than could have been done then. Patrick Kawoya had the pockets to do it. And Bidandi Sali had the backup of everybody else to be able to establish that with government.
So leadership at the clubs those days was good, but wasn't visionary.
It wasn't that visionary. And then, of course, then we had what we had, and we had it in not just football, but in business generally. In Uganda, which we have not outgrown when other countries have. That was the big man syndrome.
Yes.
Club Yomugaga. It was not about how we could pool resources. There was no thought put into how clubs could become going concerns, how they could make their own money and get rich. It was about the guys who were actually putting money in them were spending on these clubs, not earning from them. They earned in terms of how much clout they got in the communities and in this country, how much and a few other favors they got outside of the stadium. Yeah,
Okay,
because of being
Mark,
club chairman.
I want us to go for a break.
They did not establish that, and it was it was a sign of the times. So I don't blame them so much. But we, up until yesterday, we had not outgrown it, which is why I am now happy, and I'm telling you that's why I talk about the resurrection, and it's not all doom and gloom, even if you're talking like this, because then KCCA come and establish a very successful club that is based on structures and can outlive Agra Shaba. Agra Shaba. Some people who support football now do not know that Agra Shaba is the chairman.
I want us to go for a break.
While he can afford it, can I finish it very quickly?
Max,
can I finish it very quickly?
Working with time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
finish.
Yeah, I was saying like Keke, for example, while he could say, come in there and say, I have a little money on the side that I've saved and I can use it to run Express, is actually instead going to sponsorships, establishing Express as a brand with a product to sell for sponsors to buy into. Setting structures, putting a board in place, and all sorts of people doing different things from marketing down to all the way up to stadium management and gate management, and then down to technical people running the football game. Yeah, then it wasn't the case.
Okay.
And we didn't outgrow it for a long time. Yeah. And it set us
biting us back. Yeah. I want to quickly cross over to Joel Kamadi, but Jakaba, I want to get one comment from you, a very short one here.
I hope it's about violence.
No. Oh, well, let's go with violence then. Because I was going to talk about the corporate world, which I'll come back with Mwangusha. Then violence, I met someone, gentleman called Sam, just a couple of weeks ago, and I was telling him this would be one of our big debates on the press box, and says, hey. Wemanda ba United ne Arsenal tebankasukira mayinja. Mbamu living room yange mpira gwange ngolaba bulungi. Nagenda, and I don't want to say the stadium just because of club politics, but he says he went there. By the time he left the stadium, his windscreen was gone. He was struggling running away from stones. That must scare fans away. And if fans are running away, that's a slump.
It does. You know, and it says a lot about how we've changed as human beings. Probably Maxally, by the time he went to university, it wasn't news when North quoted a strike that shut down the university. But now a few canisters of tear gas when I was at Makere a few years ago. And then there was a strike that I joined. And I got very close to Kale Kaihura. By then he had just become, I think, IGP. And they threw, at some point, students wanted to get out of the university. And we got very close and almost pushed him up to the main gate, General Kale Kaihura. And then a policeman just threw one tear gas canister, and I vowed never to return to the strike.
Yes.
And it tells you about, I think, how we've changed as human beings. We're not as violent as we used to be. But then, I love things that involve a bit of falling in love. When you fall in love with something,
tell me about it.
You probably take on decisions that are way beyond what a human being can endure. When I was 6 years old, I went to an Express Villa game in Masaka. Because I lived right across Masaka Recreation Stadium.
What year was this?
And I won't tell you there. But at the time, Villa were playing in Masaka. And I have two fond memories. I'll first tell the bad one. Is that, my parents are watching and they can attest to this, is that there were so many stones. I'd never seen as much tear gas in my life. I didn't sit at Makerere, probably until maybe these other political riots that have come when I'm a bit of an adult. But on that day, when there was all this tear gas and stones pelted on us in Masaka, I was very, very intelligent. I'd gone with my elder sister. She no longer goes to the stadium.
She retired after that.
Yeah, she retired after that. But I was very intelligent. When I ran out of the stadium and realized the stones were still coming, I went to the parking yard and slid under the car. And that's how I survived. But I was 6. So when the game was done, after 8 p.m., my parents were coming around. This boy went to the stadium. Where is he? We can't find him. Meanwhile, my elder sister who took me to the stadium got into a stampede and broke her leg.
Ouch.
Yeah, she got trampled upon. Lucky she didn't die at the time, because you can imagine if there was a stampede.
Yes.
So she spent quite a bit of time in hospital and had her leg mended. But because I fell in love, it didn't stop me. I was a 6-year-old. Probably I should have made a decision then that I'd never return to Sam. But on Saturday I was at Namboli for the URA Villa game. And tomorrow I'll be at Lugogo to watch KC on Duparaka. Because I fell in love at the time. I've never fallen out of love with football. I want to say the last one. The last one has got to be that when I went to the stadium, Majid Musi never used to score against KCCA. And I used to watch Majid Musisi the same way I probably know Andrew here. But at the time, I was too young to realize I was watching the greatest Ugandan footballer, or one of the greatest two footballers.
And I was in the stadium when Majid Musi scored 4 goals against KCCA. I cannot interpret, I cannot even remember how he scored the 4 goals, but I know I saw a stocky man with Entombwe like this score 4 goals. After we'd been told, I think everyone, the story around Masaka at the time had been that Majid never ateba ntasobola kuteba KCC goal. And the time he never
and I can tell you the story behind those 4 goals.
No, guys, we're going to hold on to that story.
We shall come back to that.
Okay. I wanted to tell him why on that day he
scored
was
4.
Yeah.
No,
Match fixing.
Let's do this. Let me take one call before. Let me take 2 calls before I cross over to Joel Kamadi right now. Joel Kamadi is waiting but good evening. Hello.
Hello.
Good evening. What's your name?
I'm called Twestine Liberty.
Yes, thank you very much for watching the press box. Welcome aboard.
And right now I want to comment on this very topic that you are on.
Please do.
Yes, as you very well know, Liberty is a sportsman. I'm a lacrosse player with the national team, and I'm a football fanatic. Now, when it comes to violence, I want to comment about the violence because I'm a Mbara City fan, and the very first game of Mbara City and X-Place were in Kavumba, and after Mbara City scored, the Express fans attacked us, and I was one of the victims. You just wanted to comment about corporates. I'm a corporate, but I'm also a sports lover, and like it's all round sports. And I know each one of you guys on set. This kind of discipline and this kind of character cannot attract sponsors, cannot attract people who can really support the game to move on. And these are some of the things that the leaders in football, the media, everyone has to come out and criticize, because I'm taking an example of a company, a corporate company, sponsoring a particular Ugandan club, and then the club fans attack people and kill them and all that, and these people are putting on their shirts. So you see there is always a lot on stake for such things to happen, as branding companies coming to support sports and stuff like that. So as we comment about these things, let's take into account the clubs must know that when a brand comes on board, they need to protect the brand in terms of the sponsors, and violence cannot help the sport go anywhere.
Thank you very much, Liberty. It's really a pleasure having you online and talking to us this very evening. We've got to go for a break though, but before we do that, Joel Kamadi has a comment or two on Twitter.
Coming in thick and fast, that I can tell you. I'll just go straight to it. PK Chiganda says, never watched any league game, but even if I were to watch one, most games are played during awkward times where I can't go and watch. Plus, I have gotten a team to, I haven't gotten a team to support. I'm always supporting a different team each season. Kasule Patrick says, despite me being a season card holder of Express Uganda via Equity Express card, I've only managed to watch 3 games simply because games are played on working days. Fixtures are not favorable for people working between 8 to 5 p.m. Abdul Hakim Mugisha says, okay, I think I read that one. Let me just move to 2 more here. Ngwao says, the problem if Uganda football was a rivalry from FUFA and some club owners, remember what happened when Sunguti scored a lovely goal for Villa against KCCA and the match was abandoned. Maybe 2 more. Richard Luja says, the Villa Express, mostly violent years, led many of us away from the stadiums. Stone throwing, extreme obscenities characterize such games. Can't take my child to such a game. Also the lack of vibrant local, in brackets, village town teams and concentration of top teams in Kampala. It's always good, a good feeling listening and watching the press box on NTV Uganda. You guys look so good. Thank you very much. That is Dennis Law. The conversation continues after the break. The phone numbers to call in are on your screen. You can also just leave a comment on Facebook or Twitter. The hashtag is NTV Pressbox. Why are the numbers dwindling in the stadiums, and what direction is Ugandan club football taking? That discussion continues after the break.
There you go. Welcome back to the Kampala Serena Hotel as we go through with the press box. We're proudly powered by DSTV. Over the weekend, you must have enjoyed so much football, so much action. And of course, it's all live on DSTV. There will be more action coming up over the weekend, and it certainly shall be discussing part of that. So go out there, get yourself a DSTV bouquet. Hey, just be like us. Enjoy football with the comfort of your couch, and you can know what exactly is happening left, right, and center. Part of that, of course, is African football, so you have so many headlines to certainly enjoy. Me and the panel and you out there, we are still discussing the long journey, the long up and down journey of Ugandan football. What happened between the 70s and until recently when the game suddenly has improved. I think we must emphasize, just like Mark has said, recently our clubs are doing well. They're going back to continental football. And by the way, the national team is qualifying for the biggest and most prestigious soccer showpiece on the continent. So the good days are back in so many ways, you could say. But we are still debating what happened. We have some phone calls online, 0785 889 596. Good evening. Hello.
Hey, guys.
Yes, hi. How are you doing? What's your name?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm good. What's your name?
Yes. I wanted to comment about that. Hello.
We can hear you.
Yes, I can hear you. My comment is precisely.
Have we lost him?
I think we have a problem in there. We should try and get someone else. And it seemed the guy who had a good point.
Yeah, when they come on, let them just shoot. We are listening.
We are listening to you guys. Good evening.
Hello? Hello?
Yes, what's your name?
Kabura.
Yes, my friend, I can hear you. What's your name?
Kabura.
I can hear you, my friend. What's your name?
Hola, hola.
Andrew, wave. Please wave.
Can I please wave just to confirm that they can see me? Okay, let's get the Timolidi. Okay, let's take the last one. Good evening.
Yes, hello.
Yes, good evening. What's your name, sir?
Yes, I'm Paul calling from Bali.
Yes, Paul, tell me, Mbare Heroes. It's a good discussion to have.
You guys are concentrating on Kampala. We had very serious games in Bali, Bali Heroes.
Sure. Yes, absolutely.
Totally agree.
Yeah, but the problem, I think, I would say, has been also the management of these stadiums. If you go to Mbali today, who plays football, you'll be disappointed. That pavilion is not there. One time I sat near the cover watching a game, but almost the whole stadium, the roof is not there, the ground is bare, and this one can't promote the local talent. Then two, I think also at that time, whereas these up-country teams played, they never players were never selected for the national team. And these skills, let's be there. Then, given that time, like Stadia had said, people wanted the results. I remember Heroes used to go across Kenya to pick players to come and win a game. And that was there. And it's not sustainable.
Yeah.
And eventually, as we talk, there's no game almost in the entire region. Carroll's, UCI, which used to produce players. I was a ball boy with UCI during the days of Anyole, Omego. These are all not there. You even don't see where these stars have disappeared from. They don't come to encourage the younger generation. So you really see there's nobody to look forward to. We could admire Anyole, we could admire Omego. I think Kigenyi, the goalkeeper, was in UCI. They don't know. So today the continuity has not been there, and this has killed the progression of this game in some of this region.
Okay. Thank you very much. To be honest with you guys, as I look at those pictures on the screen right now, I'm still baffled. I'm still baffled by the number of fans that were inside the stadium watching most of these games.
Yeah, I know the gentleman who has called in, but I have a very fond memory of Mbale Municipal Stadium. I was very lucky, and I've had very many lucky moments in sport, watching sport. I was lucky to watch Paul Hasule's retirement game. It was between Mbale Heroes and Villa in 1995. The last time he walked out in a Villa jersey. And some of these things, you know,
either I wasn't smart enough at the time, but it's after I attained adulthood and I looked back and I was like, you know, I lived amongst greatness all the time. No wonder last week I was a fan for Pressbox, today I'm on set. It says a lot about...
might be on
when,
the
when
stadium.
your friend talks about it, because I played 2 league games there for Dairy in 93 and 94. The away games.
Might be when we are talking
Heroes,
stadiums, I think let's just wrap it up with government.
I like this view first.
Yeah, so of course stadiums, it's not just, you know, government role, even corporates and the clubs themselves can have the initiative, like Lawrence Mlindo has showed, and by the way,
like Pirates are doing, for example, for the rugby in Kakajo in Boyo Get It.
Exactly. But then I did do a country tour of different regions some 5 years ago. Checking out stadiums, went to the Akibua, went to Mbale, went to Soroti, where the golf course also is no longer in place, went to Gulu, Mbarara, and I did speak with Omar Peter at the time. Yeah. And I've also been checking out several manifestos for different, you know, elections, like the last 3. And every election, there's manifesto. In the manifesto, I'll speak about the ruling government. There's been talk of, you know, rejuvenating and, you know, bring back these regional stadiums. Every election. To date, the president was in Fort Poto, talks about Wuhinga as well. We are waiting. We're told it's starting any time now. So this, you know, we need to get into action as government. I'm not saying government should build stadiums for each club, but there should be something institutional for government whereby there's fallback, you know, and then the stadiums, the clubs as well. Like Mark, you said, Villa, you know, Express. These are guys who had some of the best times. Villa making the finals of the Champions League at the time Africa Club in 91. And you still come back home and you have Villa Park for home, but there's nothing to show at your home. So we just have to get back and, you know, like Mark said, look beyond winning the next game.
Let me ask something, and I'm not supposed to ask questions. Do we go the North African way? Because what the North Africans did, and I've been there to see what they've done. What they've done is with the army. The army has built all those stadiums. The ones that Asha was showing on that Africa Focus segment, all the stadiums are built by the UPDF of Egypt. And it's cheaper.
They're doing something
and you know the biggest safety net, I think, in countries like ours, the biggest safety net we have is when government owns something. Because that's when you can guarantee it will be there. Because if Andrew built a stadium and decided to destroy it and put up an apartment block like Arsenal did with Highbury, you can't do anything to him. With government, you can fight him.
The UPDF have joined in on
the government can,
by the way.
And the stadium at Makerere, wasn't it?
And I don't think government entirely spending, but it's cheaper to contract the UPDF for prisons to build a stadium than if government went and got a construction firm from Japan or from Qatar to build that famous stadium that we hope to visit at the World Cup in 2020.
No, there are certain things that, of course, government has got to take responsibility for in a national sense. Of course, for example, where I work at UNRWA, we've got a challenge. Where you come to a challenge. When you talk about government building facilities and all, it starts also with our land tenure system. The land they're building it on in North Africa actually belongs to government, and here it belongs to Nakaba and Mwangusha. And even when we are building roads, we are getting problems getting right of way because Mwangusha wants $1 billion for his small plot. And
I saw that part in Kamwengo where the road had to go around.
It's just part of a bigger picture that I'm painting. That ultimately, we have certain differences in the dynamics of the way our economies are run and our countries are run, but that government cannot cede.
But some of these stadiums are there.
Cede responsibility
some are there, but
to the private sector.
Need a bit
most
of work.
The regional stadiums are still in terms of
I know. They've unfortunately, it's less unfortunate because I played in there. But once those powerhouses, those clubs began to disappear, then so did and their interest. Then those pieces of land and all other infrastructure that had been built began to be taken over by other things where it is not rotting. But what I wanted to say is that it started again with the way those clubs were managed. I mean, because if Mbale Heroes still existed, and that cannot, its fault cannot be blamed on government, but on the people who ran it back then. Like I said, we had a strongman syndrome, where instead of building sustainable, turning this, being futuristic into thinking economics, thinking that these are commercial entities from which we needed to make money, because football is a billion-dollar industry all across the world. And rather than sinking our own money, Mbale as an area, a region, could make it. Because I remember when I was a young kid playing football in the league, the guys who used the taxis, which used to drive from Kampala to the taxi park in Mbale, would drop, is it 200 shillings per each for Mbale Football Club?
Yeah.
And that was like a source of money. And then, of course, there was the strong man. What was his name? I forget.
The Galiwango family.
Yeah,
and then
they
before
could
that,
have turned that into a going concern, a business entity that actually made its own money and was self-sustaining, rather than just dependent on the community and on the pockets of a strong man, and perhaps waiting for charity from government. But as far as the administration is concerned of these clubs, and I wanted to go back to that and wrap the federation into it.
Yeah, but let's wrap it.
Yeah, is that I talked about them not being futuristic in building community clubs, and ensuring that there was a continuity of different generations of fans, and also then reaching into their own pockets. The other thing was the rivalries not being unhealthy, but there was two ways to this. One is that our clubs again were myopic in the way they fought. They fought battles. I mean, we failed to qualify for the Africa Cup of 1992 in Senegal, just because KCCA and FC Villa were fighting bitterly for a title, a local title in 1991. The one which KCCA won that without it going to the entire stretch. Because Paul Hasule got banned when Villa went on a trip to the east.
And Villa pulled out all their players on the national team. And they were that good at the national team.
There were bitter fights between these clubs that they took to the national team, that they took to the federation, and the federations were not strong enough to control them, because the clubs in the countries that on the football we watch on TV and that we admire so much could have this bitter rivalry and all, but it's in check because of the systems that have been established by the guys who run the game. And so it is not bound to run out of control the way it ran out of control here. But I told you, because what happened in 2003, the story they're talking about, was that these clubs had to win at all costs. It has started way back.
But Mark, I want us to wrap this up.
It compromised the federation. Mark, it made it weak. It made the clubs.
I want us to wrap this up. Unfortunately, we're running out of time. We really are running out of time. Most of these debates can go on for years, and that is why here on the press box, just like you've realized, we are creating a mini series really of discussions around Ugandan football. At some point, we shall be discussing the revival of Ugandan football as well, because one of the bigger positives is to have some of those days have changed, and I think it's important we talk about how we are trying to come up once again. But I think there are problems we should never repeat.
I think which is why I think you introduced this kind of, so that we don't repeat those mistakes.
Yes, because the problems we're already repeating. We're still not working on facilities, so we're not learning from history at the moment. I don't know if we should blame the corporate world, because they have tried to come into local football, but are they coming in enough? It's probably one of those bigger debates we should have in there. The press has been very well defended. But I want to have a conclusive remark really from you guys moving forward. Where we've come from, and I'll start off with our guest, the issues we've discussed today, how much of that must we still solve for us to move forward now?
I always wrap up the challenges of Ugandan sport, and it's something that probably with your contributions, I want to write a book about. And not only to reflect on what the past has been, and I wrap them up in 4 things. I actually added the 4th, if I think about 2 years ago, because I had the other 3 for a very long time. 1, facilities. It's a huge challenge not to have a place to play. The reasons why the Maxalis honed their talent is because they could walk into a bare ground across the town and play. So there weren't academies. You cannot blame academies for talent. Katerega didn't have to go to an academy, but there was a pitch somewhere, wherever I grew up, and there were many, so you could go and play. So facilities, forget Nambole, but where kids can play.
Yes.
It starts there. 2, administration. We've got to have very sound administration. For sport to grow, like Mark states, he talked about the visionary stuff. And Andrew here talks about what the federations have done. I think administration is a very important aspect. Even in the clubs like Vipers that have a very durable facility like a stadium, unless Mulindwa creates something like durable administration that will outlast him, because one day none of us will be on this earth. Vipers, we would all love to see Vipers here from our graves and wave at Vipers winning the league. Unless there is durable and sound administration.
3 has got to be funding. Sport today cannot live out of the 200 shillings that taxis paid. It's much more expensive. Today, while Manchester United and Real Madrid and Barcelona have 92,000 people walk through the gates every single day, that cannot sustain Barcelona. They have that recruiting.
Yeah.
Man United are probably at some point not going to remove Phil Jones' name on the jersey and put a sponsor after they don't need him in their team. Yeah. Because the money that runs sport today has got to come from the corporate world.
Yes.
Governments cannot afford it. You know, the British government tried it in the 90s when they introduced that lottery, the national lottery, where all the proceeds from the lottery go into the funding of sport. Now, it's no longer affordable. No government in the world can fund sport. America don't do it. China don't do it. Maybe China do because they're still a bit communist. So funding is very important. It can only come from the corporates like DSTV who are here. Fourth and finally, for me, has got to be a culture. Every single child you know in this country, when he went out to play sport, their parents told him, don't play. Now, for me, the culture, the mindset of a parent or the support system around our sportsmen has got to change. We've got to all to start to appreciate. You might say that behind one Onyango, there is 400,000 failed footballers in Uganda. But that one Onyango could create probably 200,000 more.
Yes.
Now we've got to change the culture and see sport as something that we can succeed. Not everyone is going to pick a hole. Not everyone is going to be into road construction. Not everyone is going to go to the center that the president opened in Ntinda that helps girls learn how to knit and all. There is something, there is a gold mine where someone like Usain Bolt comes from a country where 33% of people in Jamaica live under the poverty line. But see what kind of difference is made in his life.
Yeah.
So we've got to change the culture. Max Ali here should allow his children to go and play.
Oh,
Andrew,
he
you
does.
have your children.
Oh, he does.
You should. So should Andrew. It's something that, for me, with those 4, maybe there will be a change.
Guys, the biggest problem on the press box is time. I'm really struggling with a producer in my ear right now who is telling me we have 1 minute, but the other producer has told me we have 5 minutes, just 5 minutes. Right, Mr. Producer, just 5 minutes, guys? Just 5 minutes? Where's Sean? Sean, just 5? Yeah, thank you very much. They've said 5 minutes, meaning we've got to try and wrap this as fast as we can.
When you start with Mark, I'm in danger.
Yeah?
Start with Andrew.
I'll give Mark first. I'll give Mark about a minute to wrap this up. Yes, we talk about the slump. Yes, we talk about the good old days in the 70s. We also talk about the revival now. Mistakes, some of them, we must not make them anymore.
Yeah, we can. Yeah, there are mistakes we cannot repeat. Like I saw it earlier. We have got to think futuristic. Whatever we're doing now, we've got to think sustainability. We have got to think, like I said, think commerce, think going concern. We are part of a billion-dollar industry as sport, a multi-billion-dollar industry, and we cannot continue to treat it as some amateur pastime in Uganda, which is a mentality that you have everywhere. I'm part of club football administration where it's amusing that in 2019 you have got to beg a player to go and open up a bank account, or a player or his coach. That shouldn't be the case. People have got to understand. But I mean,
the club has got to have an office.
And yeah, because we are coming from that. It shows you the culture we've had. But we need a paradigm shift in the way we think about the way we run sport, about the way we participate in it. And when you was talking about us sending our kids to play and all. When I was growing up, it was very difficult for your dad, which is why I managed to mix both sport and school. But there's no way my mom would see me as a future footballer. I was just that. She was compromising enough to want me to be the footballer who was also a doctor. But there are others who didn't even want the others to be the guys to be footballers or basketballers, like the opportunity I got. But now we've got to understand that this is it's a human resource. It's a natural resource that we have that gives us a competitive advantage in Africa and in Uganda, where we
do
all
this talk of unemployment in Uganda.
Yes, absolutely. Which brings us at a certain par with countries that are advanced in certain technologies and other things against whom we can't compete. This is level playing field, and so we've got to take it seriously. But then also. As far as running, because I'm talking about us creating structures. I like one of the things that the Federation has done in asking us to have those junior teams again. for it to be mandatory. Back in the day, it wasn't mandatory. But Dakar tells you kids could play at a football ground, so you could go and pick them up anywhere.
Yeah.
Now you cannot. Where when I was playing in the league, we had our training ground was next to KCCS, and then Uganda Airlines was there, and then you cross the road onto Chandra and Bell was there and all. So we had about 6 clubs with training grounds in the same area, and then we'd go and compete against each other in Lugogo and all. Those facilities are not there. So it's important then for the clubs to try and find them. Because when I grew up, for example, I told you about my idolizing of Godfrey Katerega. But when I look at that generation of strikers, say Katerega wasn't an out-and-out striker, but the strikers that I grew up watching when I first started watching football, Davis Kamoga, I just saw a little bit of the bomber. But then I saw Issa Sekatawa, I saw Frank Chaze.
And you saw Majid Musisi.
I saw Majid Musisi. Yeah, and there was a Buga at Coffee, there was Matthias Kawesa. And there was, these are guys who would get about 20, easy, 20 a season. Sechito the late and all. And then we came into the 90s and we had a dearth. When we were not creating until Andrew Mukasa and Hassan Mobiru. There was a dearth because we were not creating them. And we have not been creating them even since until now.
Mark, thank you.
When you can say Okui and who.
No.
So what I'm saying is that we need to create that continuity
with the kids.
What we have now that we didn't have then is something that we can't take for granted. The fact that we have the federation has asked for these youth teams. The fact that we register for underage competitions. The fact that government sinks more money into sport now than it did then, because that wasn't there. And these are things we can't take for granted, and these are things we have got to dig into to exploit to the fullest.
Yes.
And
Mark, time is up, man.
Okay.
Mangusha, I'm giving you about 30 seconds. We are really late. Just 30 seconds.
One, I'd like to credit the current FIFA on one thing. There's a semblance of, corporate governance at the federation, in that you can walk in and ask for something, and they've attracted sponsors back, as you can see. But also, when we compare the administration then and now, we need to put it into consideration that there's quite some big amounts of money coming in from now. There's more support from FIFA, and there's more support from
government,
and there's also more support from government. Only that the support from government is not structured that much, because it comes up because someone has made noise and then it comes up. So it needs to be structured a little more. So I'll give FIFA credit on those fronts. I mean, like you said, the junior league. But also, this is because, FIFA puts up these funds and they say, put up the activity and we'll fund you. And you credit FIFA that we have the Women League, we have the Youth League as well. But also, in the wind of things happening right at club level and the national team, at times people tend to take advantage of the goodwill and in the excitement, and some things do not come into fruition. For example, I've been in touch with a few coaches and club administrators, the under 18-17 league, which FIFA should be funding in terms of transport and all. Lately, the money is not coming through. So perhaps it's delayed. What I'm saying is, in the wind of excitement and, the positive steps being taken, let's also try to fulfill our other areas, our pledges, and don't take advantage of the goodwill and then, stuff like that.
Man, I don't know. I think we need like 5-6 hours to go. No, you did like 4 minutes, my friend. Joel Kamadi, please give us some reaction on social media and take us out of tonight.
All right. I'm being told I have 2 minutes, so I'll make it snappy. Raul Kanyike says the quality of players today is also wanting. I grew up frequenting Villa Park in the late 90s to watching super talented guys. Which player is there to watch today, he asks. Murunji K. Ronald, great topic, guys. Sir Fabian Paves, it's been a while since I last went down to watch a local league game. The reasons are all solely rotate around the accustomed violence that most fans of local league clubs depict. All right. Paul Uzimai says, Press Box is the biggest sports show in Uganda. Let me hope today's show is recorded. Really learnt a lot. There was a lot of content shared that I need to rewatch, and had the cream in Ugandan sports in the hosts. Thank you very much for watching. Ngwao says the problem in Ugandan football was the rivalry from FUFA and some club owners. Timothy Kivumbi says maybe it's time for floodlight football, especially for the games in town. 4 p.m. is bad timing for the working class. Nightclubs are benefiting from this. Richard Luja says, you guys at NTV Press Box have me flipping the channels between 283 and 203. On any other night, it would have been a no-brainer, but the topic today is too relevant. In case you're wondering what's happening the other side, Liverpool is being held 1-1 away to West Ham United. 35 minutes gone in that one. Wilfred Businja says, violence, violence, violence. The sole reason I loathe Ugandan football, you can't be sure of safety at local league football games. It is so scary. Maybe two more. Godson Muhezi says, Mark Sally, for the sake of us ardent viewers, tell us why King Majid scored against KCCA on that day. And he continues and says, please. Robert Ayala says, I'm a Jogo fan since days of Majid Mosisi. I agree with Mark's analysis. Ugandan football destroyed because televised leagues around the world add to that betting. Thanks for watching from the Middle East. Maybe finally, Menya Agmadibu says, we need to bring people back through good marketing strategies. Definitely the media, corporate world, and money will come. Remember, it does not end there. This discussion continues online. Thank you for your calls. Thank you for calling in. Thank you for leaving your comments on social media. We'd like to thank the Kampala Serena Hotel for this great place that they give us, the poolside, and of course, DSTV Uganda for being our good partners. I'd like to thank, of course, Andrew Mangusha, Ismat Chigongo, Mark Sally, Asha Kumugisha, and not forgetting our host himself, Andrew Kabura. It's been a good show. See you again next week, guys. From the press box tonight, it's good night, goodbye, and God bless.